up the workbook and talk as we go. All right, so I usually just print the workbook out and share it to the group that I'm working with. First of all, my name is Amanda Flood. Nice to meet you. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I work primarily with adolescents and children, but I've really since expanded my practice to work with young adults as well. So this workbook really came about because in one of my intensive treatment programs, I do weekly. I do groups weekly in our DBT program. And for me, at first it wasn't even an emotion management group. It was just anger management. But then I realized in working with the young people that they don't just deal with anger, they really deal with a wide variety of emotions. And then what I realized was every week I was kind of going in there, pulling it together. We have a DBT curriculum, but it was really geared towards our older teenagers, and it didn't translate well to the younger children. So after a while of like pulling pieces, I realized that I needed something more like sound and concrete. So what I did was I just kind of slowly put that together for myself. And, you know, I made it very like kid friendly and very colorful. And then I just realized, well, I could just put this together as a book. And I used it first during our 8-week program. And then the same book I expanded and I used throughout the year. So I never really changed much from the book. I may add to it. I may do some longer exercises. But it's just like my go-to thing. I'm developing a group coming up in the next week, Discover Calm, and I'm pulling things from here to build off of that for the group. So it just becomes a really good tool to have in your toolbox. So I just want to tell you who I am and what I do, right? I also use an individual therapy. I take it out and we'll go through it together. You can kind of pace yourselves by the topic. But essentially, everyone needs to learn how to manage their emotions. And I think that's why it works really well. It's a good base for that because we've all got to really know what to do with that. All right, so the workbook itself, let's do that, and then I'll leave some time for questions at the end. It came up like 5,000 times for me before, but now that I actually want to go through it and share it with you, it won't screen share for me. Figures, right? Okay. Let's see if I can figure out why it won't screen share for me. So I know that it's there. I'll see it on my screen. Screen share. Okay. All right, so I figure that out. Here's what we're gonna do. So most times I always open my group with a mindfulness exercise, right? So mindfulness is all about really understanding where you are in the moment now, keeping you very grounded and present to now. And there are a range of mindfulness exercises. There are more like energetic ones, and there are more that are calming and soothing. And a lot of times we know a lot of like the breathing and the calming ones. With my young people, I usually come with like 50 times more energy than I normally have. And I incorporate both. Most times I start with the high energy one just to get them to really sort of, you know, buy into what we're doing and to realize that, you know, this is going to be a lot more fun than just sitting in school and it's not their typical group. And it's something that they enjoy and want to do. So this one is sort of like an in-between one. So what I would like you to do in your comment box for the next minute is to write down as many feelings or emotions as you can for the next minute, and we'll just see how many you come up with. So I'm going to set my time on your marks, get set, go. So write down as many feelings as you can in the next minute. I'll figure out my things here. You're just listing as many feelings as you can. Go about 30 seconds left. All right, so that is the minute. So let's see, if you did it, please share it. If you didn't do it, that's essentially what we would do. And I would have the kids just share how many that they have. We can count them up, see who had the most, and then we just kind of make it like a competition. And then that's something that you could always build on in later areas, depending on what you're doing. So my screen share is just giving me the hardest time right now. So I'm just going to walk through the workbook. So if you have the workbook, great, you can look at it. If you don't, I absolutely apologize. And it's going to be more of like a listening exercise for you. I'm going to try one more time, Microsoft Explorer. Open on my screen, but I can't get it to pull up for you guys. All right. So first and foremost, we also always start with, explaining what the group is, what this group is, why are you here in the group. So that is the page one of what you have. Why do you need the group? So we kind of explain all of that so the kids kind of know. If I know them, I may bring in examples from their lives, which really already starts to model this idea of sharing, personal examples and experiences, which just makes the group, a lot richer. So it's definitely about knowing how to manage your emotions. It's how to deal with those things when you're upset. We may ask, have you guys had that issue? You came here for a reason, right? So what is that reason? And then there's this commitment to the group, essentially like your group rules. So, I have them the first time we go through all of this together, and in future sessions, I may just have them read like one or two of them of their choice. And the idea is that the accountability is already built in for them, and they know what the expectation is for the group. So they have to bring their workbook. They know that they need to practice. We give them practice exercises to do between sessions. They're expected to do that and bring it back. They know that if for whatever reason they can't remain in the group because they need a break or behaviorally it's too much, that they're responsible for knowing what they missed and for keeping up and catching up, even if they're absent, right? And then I have them sign at the bottom because, again, it is their commitment to being in the group. So then we get into, all about emotions. So we don't assume that people know what that is. So that's where that like 1 minute exercise would come in, list as many emotions as you can. That page is really like kid friendly, drawing from the movie Inside Out. So, all that is together for you. It explains what an emotion is, otherwise known as a feeling. We list a few there. We see how many they can come up with. And we always know the common ones, happy, sad, but we push them to kind of find other ways to say it too. And then we explain, what good are emotions? Because we don't always understand that. One, we always feel them because we're human. And, it lets us know that something is going on with us. By looking at other people, we can see, what's going on with them. It also prepares us to do something. So it's actually really good. It's just a matter of what we do with it. That may be, determined like either if it's good or if it's bad. So essentially, we explain that and we just make it this very normal thing. And then sometimes I would ask them, is emotions okay. And some of them will say some of it is, some of them are bad. And we explain it's neither good nor bad. It just is. And really it's about your choices that kind of determines what happens. Then the next page goes on. It's a little bit of a quiz to kind of test if they've been listening. Do emotions last forever? They don't. They may feel that way, but they ebb and flow. Does anybody know anybody who's angry all the time? Anybody that's sad all the time? And they kind of linger there, but even if it does, there's usually other feelings that pop up too, like there may be the occasional happiness, there may be the occasional joy. Sometimes we have to look really hard to find it. That's why I like things like the DBT diary card, because we can track other emotions too and help our clients see that other things are showing up besides that one emotion that they feel that they're stuck on. Another question is, can you have an emotion and not act on it? And absolutely, you can feel it and not do anything with it, right? When you have a strong emotion, act on it, true or false. You don't have to, you can sit with it. And that's what they're learning to do. I try to include like a practice exercise, which essentially is a homework, but we try not to call it homework for them to do. Sometimes we'll do it in the group. Sometimes, it's for them to just take home and do. And it just flows along with what we were talking about and just gives them, a little bit something to work on and come back with. And in the following group after the mindfulness exercise, we would start with going over the homework to see who did it. If they didn't do it, sometimes we'll do it in the group. I work with a great group of people that within the school program, the teacher would make sure that they do it before I get there. So there's somebody encouraging them to do it. Sometimes I'll say, do it with your mom and your dad, and you can explain, what you have been working on. If it's in therapy and they haven't done it, we'd go over why, they didn't, what got in the way, essentially the therapy interfering behaviors. Because if you're committed to this work, you've got to knock out what's getting in the way so that you can get the work done. All right, so the following page goes on to the way I feel, which is like an easy way for them to kind of check in at the start of like your next group. And all they're really doing is kind of filling out and drawing, how they feel. And it's a moment for them to kind of tune in to whatever's happening with them now and to kind of doodle that face and rock with that face. What I like about this too, and I use this myself, at the bottom of the page, you'll see some reading examples. So I encourage the kids, if they go to the library, like these are books that you can look at and read, or I'll tell parents if I'm working with kids individually, here's some great books that I want you guys to try to read together. And that may be the practice exercise between sessions. So it just reinforces all that you've been talking about. The girl who never made mistakes, right? So that may deal with like perfectionism and the emotions around that. Today I feel silly and other moods that make my day, which is a great book because it goes through each emotion individually. And you can ask the kids, have you ever felt that way? What does that look like for you? So I'll encourage them to get it from the library. Sometimes I request them from the library myself. The true gems I buy from my own collection because I can't always wait for the library to get around to me. So I keep it in my own. So I always have it to use for the groups. And sometimes we sit and we read it in the group, and you'd be surprised. They sit there and they listen like it's bedtime story time, and they're really into it. And again, I'm excited with it. So I bring the change of voices, I bring the character voices. Sometimes I'll have them read. I'll ask them as we're reading, what did they hear me say? What do they think is going on? So we're very connected in this process as we're doing it. And it's just another way to reinforce what you're teaching on the value and the richness of emotions. Another part to this you'll see is activities to do at home. So again, we encourage them to have that carryover because we can't just be doing this once a week for this to work. You've got to work on it at home. So here's some things you can do at home, and it's often modeled within the group. So emotion charades. So they've made that same list of emotions. We may pick like one or two, and now they have to act that out for the group, and the group has to guess what emotion that is. Then I may ask them, when was the time you felt that? How did that emotion show up for you? What did you do? How strong did you feel it from 1 to 10? Yeah, everybody guessed. They were all excited. Let's do the next one. Or we'll do emotion hangman. I'll just write it out on the board, pick the longest word, disappointment, embarrassed, and have them guess. Same thing. If they guessed it, they've got to give an example. And these are things that they can do at home. All right, mindfulness. And mindfulness, again, is all about paying attention to what's happening in the moment right now with you. So it's it's a hard concept at first, but once you get the kids to buy into it, it's pretty easy to teach, and they get really excited about developing their own mindfulness practice. It's really about focusing, right now in the moment and tuning into you. And a really great book for that, actually, again, just borrowed this from the library, but I think I'm going to purchase it for my own collection too. It's called Mindfulness Games. Hopefully you can see that well. It's Mindfulness Games by Susan Greenland. And it has a lot of different mindfulness activities that you can use, both group and individually. So mindfulness, the key to mindfulness is being able to observe what's happening, really jump right in and participate, so you can do that, and then describe it using your words. And that's all we all want our young people to be able to do, is really know their experiences and say what's going on, instead of just reacting to it in these big ways and doing these big things that essentially get them into trouble. So one activity I use for that is I get 2 brown bags and I put something in it, and they have to use all of their skills to figure out what it is, right? So we tune into our senses. What are your senses? I'll have them name it. Then I'll say, okay, so you're going to use that. You're going to be detectives and figure out what's in this bag, but you can't look at it. So I'll have them put their hands in the bag, feel it. Maybe they can shake it. And what they're doing essentially is using these mindfulness skills, but to figure out what's in the bag. And they'll take their guesses, and we'll make it all dramatic. And they'll figure out what it is. And then I reinforce what you just did was you used your observation skills to figure out what it was. You jumped right in and you participated, and you tried to get in there and figure out everything that it was. And you used your words to help us figure out what it is. You said what you felt. Was it hard? Was it round? Was it bumpy? I'll have them draw out on a piece of paper what they think it is. And that's how we start to develop this idea of awareness. I use a lot of games also to bring in mindfulness. Beat the clock is one I do that works really well individually, especially with kids who have a hard time sitting still. I'll put the timer up on the screen, and they've got to sit for that minute. And I'll say, okay, you're going to try to beat this minute and sit still. Let's see if you could do that. Tell me what that was like for you. What did you feel? I know your body wanted to move, right? I saw that leg. It was hard, right? But you did that. Okay, let's try it again. Notice what you feel in your body and see if you can get your body to sit still. And we build the time from there. Another one is a more active one. I'll have everyone stand in a circle. And I'll get like a tennis ball or stress ball, and we'll start with one ball. We'll throw it to one person, and you have to remember who you got it from, and then throw it to somebody else who hasn't received the ball yet. So you're really focused on remembering who you got it from and who you threw it to. And we'll run that around a couple of times. And then, we'll stop, we'll pause, we'll notice what kind of feelings are there. What did you have to do to really get this to work, and really get them to describe the experience, really get them to notice why they weren't able to do it well. Oh, I was looking at this kid, what he was doing. Oh, I heard the sound outside the door, and that's why the ball dropped, right? So you need to be really attentive. You have to pay attention, and we'll bring in the vocabulary that's needed for mindfulness. Then we'll make it a little harder. We'll do the same thing again, and we'll add 2 balls. So now it's really distracting because you have 2 balls going back and forth, and you still have to remember who you got it from, who you're sending it to. But the more you tune into that, the easier it is to tune out the distractions. And mindfulness is all about like tuning in. So that's a great way to kind of do that again. And again, I recommend that book because it has a lot of great material in there. If you're unfamiliar with mindfulness, but you do want to incorporate it, it's very easy to do. I also use a lot of media. So if you go on YouTube, Stop, Breathe, Think has a lot of the more like breathing, slower ones. 1 Minute Mindfulness is a great place to start with the kids and build up from there. There's also a great video called Just Breathe that you can use as well. All right, so I'm going to move a little bit faster. So I give them the mindfulness practices as well for homework. Again, I encourage them to do it with their family, or explain what's happening with their family. Again, some more books that's in there that you can incorporate with them. The Mindful Child, also by Susan Greenland. That book is more for grown-ups. So if parents are like, oh, I want to know more about this, that's a great resource for them. We may have them take home a mandala to color. Another child-friendly book, Peaceful Piggy Meditation, or Moody Cow Meditates by Carrie Lee McLean. So all those resources are there for you. So this saves you doing all the work. It's right there for you. Okay, so how to manage your emotions. I notice with the kids, like they need to understand like what's happening with them. So when you have this checkoff sheet that you can go through and you can and figure out, okay, let's figure out together, what makes you upset? How do you know you're beginning to get upset? And I really equate it to this idea of a fire alarm going off in your house. What sets off the alarm? What do you do? And I help them to understand, right? So if the alarm is going off, that's a cue to you that you need to do something. So, if hearing no is what gets you upset. When you hear no and you start to realize you want to cry or your breathing is changing, it's letting you know that you have to do something. And, you can do things that make it worse, which is our next transition, or you can do something to help you kind of tolerate that feeling or deal with the feeling so it doesn't get worse for you. So that brings us to the things we do and how it might make the situation worse. So we go through with the kids and have them identify some of those behaviors. And sometimes you got to call them out on it, right? So maybe kicking and maybe hitting. And once you start calling it out, they start to put it out there, right? Maybe it's cutting, it's self-injury, it's banging, maybe it's running away from home. How does that make it worse for you? And that is a conversation in itself. And then it makes it an easier transition into, okay, so we have these great skills that maybe if we use them, it will keep us from that place where we do some of those things that get us into trouble. And we go through each of the skills. And I'm just going to look over real quick to see if there are any questions because I'm running too fast because I didn't want to stay too long. Thank you, Deshonda, for listing all those feelings for me. Awesome. If you have questions, please do list it in the comment box. I'm going to try to keep going back and checking for those. And I'm trying to get you out of here soon too. Okay, so some of the main skills is the great thing about DBT is they have these great acronyms. And the accept skills is one of those acronyms. I'm trying my screen share again. See what this one does. No, that wouldn't be it either. All right, so the accept skills. So, we can tell the kids, if you're experiencing these really tough emotions, or even your adults, if you're having these tough emotions, we need you to save yourself and try a skill. Just try to distract from whatever it is that's driving these really strong emotions. So it's a good time to try an accept skill, and each letter stands for something different. So the A is activity. So maybe you need to get busy and do something that you really like, right? And I'm sure we can all think of things that we like doing, listening to music, coloring, I love running. So what is it that you love to do that might drop the intensity of the feelings? You don't do something to make it worse. Contribute. What's something you can do for somebody else? And sometimes these skills are grouped for me, that's a day right there. We're just going over the skills. Sometimes I'll split it and we'll do half the skills one session, we'll do half the skills another session. Sometimes we'll really focus on an area and I'll have them really practice it. So we'll practice the things they like to do in session. I'll have them for contribute, make something for their peers or make something for somebody else, talk about different ways that they can contribute, what it feels like for them to do it for the person receiving it. So all these things you can expand in any area. And then we work through all of the accept skills. Same thing for the next set of skills. After that, there is a practice exercise for them to take home related to the accept skills. Same thing for the improve skills. Sometimes things are really tricky in life and we need to take a second and just improve the moments, right? I can't do anything else. I can't get to my therapist yet. I can't get to somebody who can really help me. But I know it's overwhelming, so I want to try to use a skill to just improve the moment. So maybe, remembering no feeling lasts forever. I'm using imagery, which is the I in the improve skill, or maybe I'm looking for another letter in the improve skill, relaxation. I'm going to tense and relax my body, and all these things we would practice, right? So we're going to hit one thing today, which is all about mindfulness and paying attention to one thing, right? Pick one thing in the room, and I want you to focus on that for 1 minute. We'll talk about that experience. What was it like? bringing your mind back to that one thing over and over again. Vacation, where was your favorite vacation? Describe that to me. Wow, just talking about it, you're smiling. And I make all those references to them so they're more aware of what it does for them as they're embracing the skill, using it and practicing it. So once we rock with the improved skill, there's still that practice homework, take it home, do it, reinforce it. Again, everything is really like colorful. And you'd be surprised that even like my teenagers like it as well. I have teenagers that rather be in this group than in the straight DBT group. And it's really designed, well, it's kind of open-ended, but I get from like first graders up until like 9th, 10th graders in the group. And I use the same workbook for the age group at times. It's a mixed group within that age range, and they're all really able to utilize it. So it can be just, a simple one-word answer for some of them, or for the older ones that are able, they can put more into it. So you can really expand it and evolve it for whoever's in your group. But I find using it with various age groups, we can do that with ease. The other thing we want to stress again is self-soothing using your 5 senses, right? And, you can explain this yourself. Like, what are the things you see that's really powerful for you that helps you to relax? What can you focus on? Can you focus on just a color in the room when you're really upset? Count 5 green things. Really tune in for a second on what else do you hear? What else do you smell? What else do you, what can you taste? What do you love tasting that makes you feel good? Do you need to put gum in your mouth when you're a little bit bored before you do something? And again, we just practice everything in session. We reinforce it with homework. And session could be individually, it can be, within the class, it can be within group. We go over, we practice, we reinforce. And we encourage the kids to share their experiences when they do it. The trickier one I find is the idea of understanding wise mind, emotion mind, and reason mind. But sometimes the kids are really great at it too, and they blow my mind with their explanation of it. So, emotion mind is, when you're thinking from that emotional place, right? So he just broke up with me and I'm texting him 5,000 times because I want to know what's going on. Why are you not with me? And that's emotion mind, and you're really ruled by your feelings, right? Reason mind is a little bit more like concrete. Like I have to study for 20 hours because I need to pass the test. And it's more like ruled by facts, and not so much of the emotions. And wise mind is that middle place that sort of respects both. And how I also teach that to the kids, I'll ask them, an individual, I ask them to sort of like imagine an airplane. If you tip to either side, the plane goes in that direction. So our goal is to kind of stay in the middle. And the more you're aware of what side you're on, the easier it is to kind of balance out. And that's where you use those skills, is to help you kind of balance it out a little bit better. The plane visualization usually works better for a lot of people. And also I may have them like act out. Okay, you're going to be emotion mind, the same issue. You be emotion mind and act it out for us. You be wise mind, someone else's reason mind, and I'll have them act out the same issue. They love like getting involved that way, and they get really excited. So it's a good way to keep it animated and going, is to have them act out each part of it. And then they kind of get it. And those times I'll ask them, oh my God, like what happened in that situation? What mind were you in? Were you thinking with your feelings? Was it very like concrete, straightforward? Did you find that middle place? And we introduce the language that way also. And the same thing, the next page has an example of that too with emotion mind. I got into an argument with my teacher because the work was too hard. I didn't know how to do it, and she's always giving me hard stuff. I ripped up my work, punched a hole in the wall, and ran out the class. So emotion mind, we'd identify, okay, well, what were the feelings? I was really embarrassed that I couldn't do the work, and that's really why you got so upset. And then I was mad the teacher wouldn't help me. So we're really kind of pulling it out for them in emotion mind, and the example walks them through that. Okay, so reason mind, what were you really thinking? That the teacher wasn't really going to help me, and that's why I didn't ask. I'm going to get in trouble anyway, so I might as well leave. So now we're pulling out, okay, what were you really thinking in that reason mind space? And then we shift to wise mind. Well, let's look at both of them. Like, what else could we have done? Okay, I could have called the teacher over and tell her what was hard, right? I could explain my feelings and not run away. And that keeps us in a more balanced place, and we may explain why. And then I ask them to look for examples in the next week of if they're more in reason mind, emotion mind, wise mind. It's also great for adults to kind of think about, what space they're usually in and that they usually react from. And then it gives you a chance to really practice the skills that they need for each area. Okay, so that's like all of it in a bubble, in a nutshell. Another great book that I really like is Visiting Feelings, because it's a book that allows you to look at mindfulness of emotions. And again, sometimes I would just read it at the end of the group and use that to kind of close up our group, or I'll do it individually with folks, because it just brings in different layers. I feel like when you can bring in different things, it just reinforces the concepts in different ways. So like from books to media like YouTube, apps, as well as like the concrete workbooks, you can just invite a different depth of learning. So with this book, Visiting Feelings, it really encourages this idea that feelings are really a good thing and they're here because something is going on. And we almost want to look at it like a visitor coming to your house. Like if your friend just showed up to the house one day, would you just close the door? Would you not answer it? Would you ignore them totally? Or would you want to find out, hey, why are you here? What's going on? Something happened. So in that same investigative way, in that same way you investigated, what was in the bag in that earlier group, and you really wanted to know and you were excited to find out, that's the same way that we are with our emotions, right? I'm going to read you one page. This is Visiting Feelings by Lauren Rubenstein. Do you have a feeling that's visiting today? Can you open your door and invite it to play? Can you ask what it wants, then check it out? Welcome it and listen to what it's about. What if the feeling plays hide and go seek and won't let you see it, not even a peek? Here's an idea, a good one to try. Look at that feeling with wide open eyes. How does it look? Is it short? Is it tall? Is it thick or thin or round like a ball? So it goes on and encourages just this description of our feelings, and this rich idea of embracing our feelings. All right, so I am going to stop there. If you have any questions, again, please kind of post it in the comment box. Sorry, the screen share didn't work. But all in all, again, I think when we're teaching about emotions, it's really about learning how to navigate our emotions and giving our clients the skills to best do that. In the climate that we live in, we can see the huge need for it. A lot of young people, when I see them in my psychiatric setting, it's truly because they just haven't had the opportunity to learn the tools that they need to manage life. And for some of them, life is just truly outlandish and it shouldn't be for them, but it is. But they have no skills and ability to manage that. And that's where we really get an opportunity to give them those concrete skills, coping skills, learning to just know what it is, how to manage it, and know that it's okay to embrace it. It's okay to feel it. It's okay to figure out why it's there. And then from there, figure out what we need to do with it without causing more harm to ourselves or anyone else. So I hope this made sense for you. Please do send me any questions you may have at amanda@amandaflow.com. Even later on, if you're using the book and you're like, what is this? Please reach out. I'm glad to really help. If you want to know where to get the book, you can certainly reach out to amanda@amandaflow.com. Okay, I'm going to just look over and see if you have any questions in the box. Okay, so it doesn't look like it. So if anything comes up again, please do reach out. I'm always open and willing to help as much as I can. And that will conclude our review of how to really incorporate feelings into our groups and how to incorporate the emotion management workbook if you have it and want to use it. And it's the same idea, using it individually and just breaking it down into each section. Almost each session becomes a section if we're identifying feelings, if we are going over like our triggers and how to handle that, if we're going over each set of skills like the improve skill or the accept skill, if we're going over our thinking styles, each can become its own individual session. So that's how you can kind of break it up and sort of like guide your treatment as you go. And then you can add and build on that based on what your client is experiencing or what they're bringing to the table as well. All right, so I hope that was resource rich for you. It was my pleasure. Okay, so thank you guys. Amanda Flood again. Therapy is dope, and I have my own private practice in Valley Stream. You can just email me if you ever need anything. Amanda@amandaflood.com. Thank you. It's been my pleasure.